welcome to WarrenThornton.com. Hello and welcome to WarrenThornton.com. There are people saying that there is no live on Rumble at the moment. Hopefully that will be fixed very, very shortly. For those of you who are watching on X and everything else, we've got a packed show for you tonight. We've got Lembit Opik joining us in about 10 to 15 minutes. There we go. The Rumble is up and working and on live. Yes, so very, very simply, here we go. We've got Lembit Opik joining us to talk about the 28-point peace plan. If you're watching the subscriber show this morning, we literally got hold of a copy, had it downloaded and everything else, and we put it out there. Now, that is definitely from the State Department. So it is actually an American document. There are people out there saying, oh, it's fake and everything else. It is not. Very, very simply, it has been given by the State Department to the Ukrainians to peruse. The Ukrainians are not happy about it. The Russians are yet to be given a copy of this document. There's also people out there saying that Russia were part and parcel of making up this document. No, they weren't. There were certain things that were agreed on in Alaska between Trump and Putin, which are now part of the problem that we have, of course, now saying that, of course, Putin was party to this peace deal that's come out. No, they weren't. There were things that were discussed in Alaska that have been put into this, but there has been no, and I repeat, no contact whatsoever. It's one of them where you just look at it and you go, okay, I believe you. Right, so we'll get into that in a minute, just to let you know if you are just joining us on Rumble. We've got for you tonight, we've got some things that, shall we say, people will not want you to watch. We've got at least 4 videos tonight that we have to show you after the first hour, because if we show them on the screen here and we show them on YouTube or we show them on X or we show them in various places, we can show you them on Rumble. We can show you them at WarrenThornton.com. So come across, come and be part and parcel of WarrenThornton.com. Now, basically, that is the home of free speech. We don't get paid by anyone. You keep the station alive by your contributions and subscribing. So come across to Patreon, type in Warren Thornton, that'll take you straight to the page. Now, very, very simply, you get 6 at least 2-hour shows every single week. So that is literally good value, we think, for the price of a beer, literally the price of a pint of beer. You get 6 shows every single week. You get a newsletter now on the Saturday that you can read, because Saturday is the only day we have off. And you also have a subscriber show. Now, it is interactive, and so is the news show. So you are allowed to come on as long as you're civil. You're allowed to put your point of view and disagree. It is called free speech, and that is what we practice here. So if you like what you see in the first hour, it is a bit sanitized because we put that first hour up on other platforms. But the full show, where you can see videos and documentaries that nobody else is allowed to see, that the Western media will not allow on their platforms, come across and see if you enjoy being part of it. Anyway, let's get on with the show, because I think this is very, very important that we do. There are many, many things that are going on all around the world. And as I say, we will get into lots and lots of chat about that in a minute. But first of all, let's have a listen to this.
There is a role for gold, and there's a role for Bitcoin, which I believe are assets of fear. You own these instruments if you are You're frightened of the debasement of your currency. You own it if you have financial insecurities, or you own it if you have physical insecurities and worries. The opportunity for tokenization is probably the most important component of how we are going to see the evolution of the financial plumbing of the world. There's just too many middlemen in so many different areas. And the reality is, if we could tokenize all our ETFs, all $5.3 trillion of our ETFs, and provide that in a digital wallet, you could seamlessly, without fees, going from a digital currency or a stable coin or whatever that may be in your digital wallet and buy bond or stocks. And I believe that is going to be the future. I do believe more transactions are going to be done digitally with authentication of ownership. Now, obviously, you know, should the whole financial system be on one blockchain? What does that mean? How do we protect ourselves? So there are obviously a lot of things we have to address to make that work. But I do see more and more of a future of having more and more financial assets being digitized, sitting in a singularity of a blockchain, and going from cash to stocks to bonds back and forth, doing that seamlessly. And I do believe that is going to happen sooner, not later.
There we are. So just in case you're not aware, that was Larry Fink, who is the co-chair of the World Economic Forum and, of course, the CEO of BlackRock. Now, when it comes to digitalization and putting it together with crypto and blockchain and everything else, and, of course, going to central digital bank currency or central bank digital currency, do be really, really careful. The simple fact is they do not like you having control over your own money. They don't like you being able to even draw your money out of your own account. Remember, you get asked where you're going to send that and who you're giving it to. So there's all sorts of restrictions on your account. And the very last thing they want is you having freedom to choose where you put your money. And once, of course, they have it, digitalizations by the Western powers, as Vic said there very simply in the comment, they are talking about literally controlling your whole life. Just imagine if you have a digital currency, and of course you are then linked to that. Not only have they got all your details, they also know where all your money is, and of course they can prevent access to it. Just imagine your carbon footprint, for instance, where you've maybe used too many carbon credits, or you're so poor the rich people start to get your carbon credits off of you. And of course, this is the reason they want to destroy BRICS, because they don't want people having that freedom of movement. They want to be able to control everything that's out there. Something else that we're going to show you as well, I think it's really, really important. Have a little look at this. This is something from this morning, but it's once again, it's a World Economic Forum bragging about what they have done to you.
Today, I'm really proud to sit on WEF's Power of Media Task Force, and GLAAD is a very proud partner of the Partnership for Global LGBTQI Equality, which is also known as PGLE. And PGLE was launched right here in 2019 and is a project of WEF and the UN Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights. We work with the news, business, entertainment, faith leaders, sports, governments, and individual activists from around the globe to ensure and educate public people on LGBTQ issues and move policy forward. In the US, the Gallup poll this year showed that over 20% of Gen Z are LGBT. We've been running studies ourselves that include the Q, and so it's LGBTQ, and we expand the age from 18 to 34, and you can see nearly 40% of Gen Zers identify as LGBTQ.
So just to give you a heads up there, not being homophobic or transphobic in any way whatsoever, this has been an agenda they have been pushing. much of the money behind it is quite incredible. And very, very simply, PGLE is literally a global organization to push the LGBTQ. And literally, if 40% of people identify as this, you can imagine the problems that's going to have with the population of the planet. NILUS.
Yeah, I've just looked it up, actually. It stands for Partnership for Global LGBTIQ plus Equality.
Yes.
PGLE. All right.
Yeah. Yes. Not good. And of course, that is just one of the things that they're pushing, as well as the climate agenda. That's a massive thing, by the way, just to let you know. Sean Murphy.
Well, if it's coming out the WEF and the UN, we know what they're like, and anything that comes out of them is not good for the planet or humanity.
Yes, absolutely. Good point. Well made. We've got Nillis Weber wants to say something else. Nillis, very quickly.
Yeah. I'm not too sure, but I think that lady might have been one of the chair people of Disney, because I remember hearing a podcast from her, and she said she wants to get that into every Disney film that she is making.
Yeah, absolutely. Good point. Well made. And not only that, we had, if you remember, the climate change conference just a few days ago. And of course, one of the centres used for it caught fire. No doubt they'll blame that on global warming as well. So you can see where these agendas are pushing us. Just wanted to show you these things that are happening, shall we say, behind the scenes or very quietly, while, of course, all this is going on. While we're waiting, I thought I would flag these up for you. Given what is going on or about to start happening in the world, we will be getting into the Ukraine-Russia war in a minute. And we're just going to give you a nice heads up here. Today, another type of war started. It's a war that has been going on for literally years and years and years. And it's not a war where anybody normally gets killed. It's a war between Australia and the UK or England. And of course, it's at cricket. The Ashes started today. England was scuttled for 172, and Australia were literally at stumps for 128 for 9. So England doing quite well on the very first day of the Ashes. And just in case you don't think it's a war, and it's cricket is something for a girls' game, have a little look at this.
Oh, nasty. Had to get himself settled enough to avoid.
There we are, just in case you don't think that they take that very seriously, or it's not a war, and good luck to England. Right, let's get on with the rest of the show. We do want to, or do need to, have a little look at this.
A few weeks ago, an important collaborator of Hillary Clinton, John Podesta, was arrested for pedophilia and child pornography. I'm referring to Slade Summer, a man with ties to the world of Broadway and cinema, who play a role in the effort to debunk the infamous Pizzagate affair. That is, the network, filthy complicity and horrendous crimes against minors that revolves around the international deep state. We have learned that certainly Jeffrey Epstein and most likely Ghislaine Maxwell were members of the Israeli Mossad. This makes us understand that the famous trips of many well-known people to Epstein Island were used to blackmail them by collecting evidence of their guilt in participating in heinous ritual crimes against minors. And if the heads of state and governance officials of the Western world do not dare to breathe out a word of protest against the massacres of civilians in Gaza Strip, it is legitimate to assume that this attitude is due to the intensive dossier of videos inculpating them that are in possession of the Israeli intelligence services. The same thing must be happening with the preparation of the fake pandemic emergency, which was lavishly replicated in all the member states of the World Economic Forum and the United Nations, and also with the farce of the Ukrainian crisis. But this blackmail of the powerful of the world constitutes the unifying.
There we are. So very, very simply, we're just giving you a heads up. There's the Catholic Church, or I should say bishops, speaking out on global issues. Very unlike the Catholic Church to get involved in that sort of thing. And of course, many, many people don't believe half the stuff that is going on. Just let me show you this. Nihilists.
Well, that's Archbishop Carlo Vigano, and he's actually, about 6 months ago, he was expelled from the Roman Catholic Church for talking like that.
Yes.
And he's talking Christianity, and the Catholic Church is talking New World Order. Well, yeah, they're preparing the world for this new religion, and they're trying to take the Orthodox Church in as well with the Patriarch of Constantinople.
Yeah.
And that is what's happening with the new church in Ukraine.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Lee Williams.
quick one. I was just going to say, is it everybody knows that this is happening for the Christians around the world, like Sudan and Russia and
Yeah.
Ukraine and different areas? Yeah. Okay.
Syria. Yeah, absolutely. Let's get into this while we're talking. Couple of things before we get right into everything that's going on with Ukraine. This is to do with the Gaza aid.
What you're looking at is 4,000 tons of aid that should be in Gaza, but it's not. It's in Jordan. The World Food Programme has another 2 warehouses like this. UNICEF has warehouses like this packed to the gills. The Jordan Hashemite Charitable Organisation has 36 warehouses. In fact, all of those groups put together say that they have enough aid for 150 trucks per day, 5 days per week, for 3 months to go to Gaza. But it's not in Gaza, it's still stuck in Jordan. On top of that, they say they have another 10,000 tons of aid ready to come, but they can't get it in here because, well, this place is full. All of the warehouses are full because the Israeli authorities are not letting this aid get through to Gaza.
There we are. To tell you everything you need to know about the aid and everything that's going on in Gaza. And of course, shall we say, the peace plan that they've got going on as well. And of course, we'll keep you more updated with that all the time. Now, before we get into Ukraine, we're waiting for Lembit before we do that. Takechi, or I should say, I call it Takechi. Takechi's castle, of course, is the name that I use for her. This is Japan's, or should we say, America's shill in Japan. And of course, she upset the Chinese by opening her mouth about Taiwan when it really doesn't have anything to do with her. And of course, this has totally annoyed the Chinese. Now, Japan's Sane Takachi rejected the Chinese demand to retract Taiwan remarks, sorry. She turned around and said that her comments, there was no change to Tokyo's stance on how it would respond to a major regional security crisis. Takechi recently became the first sitting Japanese leader in decades to publicly link a Taiwan Straits crisis with a possible deployment of Japanese troops, prompting a furious response and economic retaliation from Beijing. Since then, she's limited herself to the more vague position repeated by recent Japanese prime ministers, and in remarks to reporters on November the 21st, before departing to a G20 meeting in South Africa, she reiterated that stance. And of course, that has caused the Chinese to get very, very angry yet again. So we're just giving you a quick heads up where we are with them, because that's not going to get, that's the situation we believe is not going to get any better. Sean Murphy.
Well, I'm sure the Americans have told her how weak the Chinese armed forces are, and how they've got this terrible failing economy, and she's believed every word of it.
Yes.
And she's done exactly as she's been instructed to do, because she has been told what to do, and there's no doubt about that.
It does seem as though it is something that it's not going to go away. She is very, how can I put this? It does seem an absolutely incredible thing that she would be talking about this and trying to stir up tensions now, especially, should we say, when we know what the sort of plan is behind that. I think that's the thing we've got to look at, is the whole idea is to keep winding up the people of China, and as if there wasn't enough problems in the world without her starting something like that. Quite incredible. While we're talking about all sorts of nonsense, something here from the Philippines. Alice Guo, or Guo. Now, this is a very, very rich woman who has been literally arrested for trafficking women. And of course, this is trafficking not only women, but other people as well. Now, a Philippine court has convicted her, the former mayor, who officially is a Chinese national, of human trafficking and helping to establish an illegal online gaming complex in northern provinces where hundreds of Chinese and other foreign nationals were forced to conduct scams. Now, this Pasig Regional Trial Court in Metropolitan Manila sentenced Alice Guo to life in prison with 7 other Filipino and Chinese co-accused, and ordered them to pay a fine of $34,000 each and compensate several trafficking victims who filed complaints. Now, the Philippine authorities allege that she faked Filipino citizenship to run for mayor of the town of Bamban in northern Tarlac province, where she ran a sprawling illegal scam compound very close to the town hall. And apparently she made close on 85 billion. Would you believe? 85 billion. Quite incredible. So we thought we would bring you that story, because it's not every day that you see somebody who's locked up for 85 billion. So without further ado, let's get into Russia and Ukraine. As I say, we're still waiting for Lembit Opik to turn up. No doubt he'll be here very shortly. But here we go. Let's get into this. And this is really something that I think everybody will want to know. This is where mercenary soldiers sort of kick in. You've heard a lot in the last few days about Ukrainian soldiers, about Russian soldiers, and lots of, shall we say, mercs coming over to fight on the Russian side. This was in 2022, by the way. This was mercenary soldiers coming to fight on behalf of Ukraine, would you believe? So it is not quite as clear cut as everybody would have you believe. And hopefully, with a bit of luck, we'll be able to show you even more on that. We have, shall we say, a Ukrainian that we want to talk to, because he's going to give us the skinny on how many are now still in the country and are looking to fight on the side of Ukraine. And we should have that report for you, by the way. Just so you know, there are 4 areas around the Eurasian plate that have started to play up And of course, one of these, would you believe, borders on Ukraine. And there are warnings going out saying that, of course, the Eurasian plate is, of course, possibly going to volcanically erupt in the next few days. We remain, shall we say, skeptical of that. The other thing as well that we need to know, Rheinmetall, literally since the peace plan has been put out there, Rheinmetall shares have dropped by 9%. So the Germans are not very happy about this at all. And in fact, Friedrich Merz had a furious round of 11 phone calls to try and tell people that everything that they wanted to get rid of this peace deal, that the Europeans should come up with their own peace deal. And of course, the Europeans are now going to be meeting urgently at Merz's command so that literally they can push this peace deal on people. Isn't that crazy? And of course, Merz is going to be in charge of this himself. Let's have a look at the battle map then. So why are we suddenly getting huge amounts of peace deals coming forward? Well, very, very simply, everybody's saying, well, the Russians aren't making any headway whatsoever. They've made a ton of headway. And there's lots of people that are saying this can't be right. Well, it is. Hulialpol, which you can see here, this is the next area that's about to be surrounded, like Pokrovsk, like Kupiansk, and everybody is thinking, is this possibly going to happen? Yes, it's going to happen. Okay. Hulialpol is definitely one of those areas where this is next going to strike. And if we move along here, we can see Pokrovsk. As you can see, literally they have the complete firepower over this area. And if we move the map up here, you can see there's Minorad, and the Russians are slowly but surely squeezing the couple of thousand men that are left in there. There's about, sorry, I say a couple of thousand, but there's 1,000 that have literally surrendered. There's about 900 left in the city itself. And everybody turning around and saying, oh, Pokrovsk is totally under Russian control. That red area is the map. Now, people go, oh, yeah, but it's tiny, this tiny area here. Please give it a rest, okay? Pokrovsk and Minorad, this area here is home to 250,000 people. So it is not a small area. It is not a small logistics hub, as people are cracking on and saying, oh, this is complete nonsense. And of course, everything's perfectly okay. It is not. And one of the next areas where they're fighting as well is inside Siversk, which is here, as you can see. And Siversk is going to be one of the next big areas, shall we say, to fall. They're in the southern half of this town, pardon me, comes city, and that's going to be the next area. As you can see, these yellow areas are literally where the fighting is quite strong, and the Russians have just moved into those areas. And if we go further up the map here, we can see this area here, Kupiansk. The Russians have announced that the whole of Kupiansk is now under their control. So that is another town and city that nobody's talking about. A very big hub indeed is completely and totally under Russian control. And of course, this is on the road, as they say. And of course, there's other areas as well that are taking over. But this is on the way to Kharkiv. Literally, as you can see here, there is water here. And of course, the Russians will want to secure this area first, but they're also approaching Kharkiv very slowly from the north as well. I do apologize. We've had a bit of a cough over the last few days, and we're just trying to get rid of it. Now, let's have something to do with, of course, the stuff that's been going on. Let's have a little look at this, because this, Kupiansk, this is Kupiansk, all flagged up. Let's have a look.
Город Купянск освобожден. Победа будет за нами.
Бойцами 121-го мотострелкового полка 68-й гвардейской мотострелковой дивизии 6-й армии героически был взят Купянск.
Враг будет разбит!
There we are. You can see Russian flags all over Kupiansk. It is now fully in Russian hands. Just in case, because you'll get lots of people turning around and saying, oh no, it isn't, and all the rest of it. And of course, as we say, Kupiansk is getting worse, or was getting worse and worse. Here's Vladimir Putin actually turning around.
Что такое политическое руководство Украины, мы уже понимаем. Это уже никакое не политическое руководство. С марта прошлого года.
So that was Vladimir Putin confirming that, of course, it is now completely and utterly, as they say, in Russian hands. Let's get into this now, because this is something else that is going to get worse and worse as far as the Ukrainians are concerned. And of course, many people are turning around and saying that the Ukraine are going to be absolutely fine. They're winning. They're not doing anything wrong. They're going to be doing this. They're going to be doing that. They'll be absolutely fine. Zelensky has come out with this.
Українці, українки, у житті кожної нації є момент, коли всім треба поговорити. Чесно, спокійно, без домислів, чуток, пліток, без усього зайвого. Так, як є. Так, як я завжди намагаюсь говорити з вами. Зараз один з найважчих моментів нашої історії. Зараз тиск на Україну один з найважчих. Зараз Україна може опинитися перед дуже складним вибором. Або втрата гідності, або ризик втрати ключового партнера. Або складні 28 пунктів, або вкрай важка зима. Найважча та подальші ризики. Життя без свободи, без гідності, без справедливості. І щоб ми вірили тому, хто напав вже двічі. Від нас чекатимуть відповідь. Хоча насправді я вже її дав 20 травня 2019 року, коли, присягаючи на вірність Україні, зокрема сказав: я, Володимир Зеленський, волею народу обраний президентом України, зобов'язуюсь усіма своїми справами боронити суверенітет і незалежність України, обстоювати права і свободи громадян, додержуватися Конституції і законів України, виконувати свої обов'язки в інтересах усіх співвітчизників, підносити авторитет України в світі. Для мене це не протокольна формальність, для галочки це клятва. І кожного дня, кожному її слову я бережу вірність. Я ніколи її не зраджу. Національний український інтерес має бути врахований. Ми не робимо гучних заяв, ми будемо спокійно працювати з Америкою та усіма партнерами. Буде конструктивний пошук рішень з нашим головним партнером. Я буду наводити аргументи, я буду переконувати, пропонувати альтернативи, але точно ми не дамо ворогу приводів сказати, що це Україна не хоче миру, що це вона зриває процес і це Україна не готова до дипломатії. Такого не буде. Україна працюватиме швидко. Сьогодні, в суботу і неділю, весь наступний тиждень. І стільки, скільки це буде потрібно в режимі 24/7, я буду боротись за те, аби серед всіх пунктів плану не було пропущено щонайменше двох. Це гідність і свобода українців, бо саме на цьому базується все інше. Наш суверенітет, наша незалежність, наша земля, наші люди і українське майбутнє. Ми будемо і маємо робити все, аби в результаті сталося закінчення війни. І не сталося закінчення України, закінчення Європи і глобального миру. Я говорив щойно з європейцями, ми розраховуємо на європейських друзів, які точно розуміють, що Росія не десь далеко, що вона поруч з кордонами ЄС, що Україна зараз є єдиним щитом, який відділяє комфортне європейське життя від планів Путіна. Ми пам'ятаємо, Європа була з нами. Ми віримо.
Nilus.
Well, I might be wrong, but that looks like a green screen behind
It
him,
is
doesn't
green.
it?
It is a green screen, but this is
Yeah.
it doesn't matter that it's a green screen. It matters what he's saying.
Right. Yeah, there was something I was watching Russia today just before the program started, and they were saying that a large part of the army wants to make the concessions, but
Yes,
if Zelensky does, he'll be killed by the
highly
nationalists
likely.
who are being largely supported by the British.
Yes, and of course, Britain would very much like to see Zelensky in his place. Of course, if he's not going to do exactly what that was literally a desperate effort, because of course he is under huge pressure from the Americans and from others to accept this peace plan. I am pleased to say we are joined by Lembit Opik from Unprecedented TV. Good evening, Lembit. How the devil are we?
Not bad. Thanks for your patience. I was doing something very domestic. I had to get my children from a long way off. But I'm here now. And I have to say, I think they're a lot more mature than Vladimir Zelensky, who seems to have become unaware of the fact that if you lose a war, you don't get to set the terms. You get to accept the terms. But apparently he and his useful idiot friends don't realize this.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're going to get into that then now with you, Lembit, because we were holding this part of the show for you to get here, and we're going to go through in detail the 28-point peace plan that has been confirmed, that has been put out there, and of course, there's many people turning around and coming out with all sorts of nonsense when it comes to this peace plan. It is confirmed that that peace plan has now been given to the Ukrainians, 100%. The problem that we have, of course, is, and of course, we put that out there 7 or 8 hours ago, and it is a massive talking point now. So we're going to talk about it in great detail. And Lembit and I are going to go through this 28-point peace plan. So let's start with point 1, Lembit, of the 28. Ukraine's sovereignty will be confirmed. Would Russia or Ukraine have a problem with that?
No, as long as we get to talking about territory later. No, because Russia doesn't want to eliminate Ukraine. And so in principle, I can't see a problem with that. And obviously, it's in Ukraine's interest if it wants to carry on existing. Do you think there is?
No. So we get 2 ticks. We get one in the Russian flag and one in the Ukrainian flag column. That number 1 point would be okay and agreed. So as I say, as long as there are a full and comprehensive, shall we say, look, making sure that everything else is adhered to, I can't see Russia having a problem with whatever is agreed to, Ukraine having sovereignty and that being confirmed. I think you're completely right. So point number 2, moving on, a full and comprehensive non-aggression.
This isn't going to take very long, is it?
But I think it might. A full and comprehensive non-aggression agreement will be concluded between Russia, Ukraine, and Europe. All ambiguities of the last 30 years will be considered and resolved, Lembit.
Yeah, once again, in theory, this is absolutely straightforward. Because in principle, it's saying, let's resolve the issues relating to the status of Ukraine. However, big if, that's as long as the West accepts what it promised. James Baker, 1990, not 1 inch to the east, will come to Ukraine's non-existence in NATO terms later. But a promise was made, and the militarization of Ukraine goes against that promise, I think, in spirit. But in theoretical terms, there should be no problem of disambiguation of the status of Ukraine. But then there's another problem here. So in theory, it could be done. In practice, the biggest problem, the biggest fly in the ointment, and that is those useful idiots again, the European Union. because they're bleating in this embarrassing, hopeless way. I would give a tick to Ukraine and America, or Ukraine and Russia, but a big X for Europe, because they keep thinking that they're relevant when they're not.
Yeah, absolutely. No doubt they'll be part of it. I think that is something that Ukraine and Russia would both agree to. And of course, Ukraine isn't a sovereign nation. They've never actually signed up to anything. They never agreed the borders or anything else. And of course, Ukraine would want to have the second point, I think, very much in their pocket. And they want everything over the last 30 years to disappear as well. But on the first 2 points, can't see any problems with Russia and Ukraine agreeing to that. Now, point number 3, it is expected that Russia will not invade neighboring countries and NATO will not expand further. Lembit.
Well, I'm sure that Russia would be willing to agree to that because their territorial ambitions are very straightforward. It is to resolve this particular problem. And whatever their future plans, I'm sure they'd agree with that. The people who don't like this one isn't going to be it aren't going to be the Russians. It's going to be others, I would say. What do you think?
Well, there's going to be people
because the expansion of NATO and all that. Go on, sorry.
There are people that want to be part of NATO that are then not going to be allowed to join Lembit.
Yeah, and I got no problem with that, and nor should the Americans, because they promised that Ukraine wouldn't join NATO, not 1 inch to the east. So no, they shouldn't disagree with that at all. But Europe and those weirdos, people like Mark Rutte, they'll have a problem with it. So big tick for Russia, not a big tick for Zelensky, who's been going on and on and on about being in NATO. But I think he's wrong. I would probably I'm guessing, this is almost like an exam now, Professor Thornton. I'd give it a tick to, yeah, there we are. Yeah.
There we are. So we have a tick for Russia. I am in total agreement with you on this one, Lembit. I say that Ukraine will not be happy about not being allowed into NATO. I think you're absolutely right. And I think there are other nations that the European Commission or the European Union will wind up to make them. So I think on point 3, you're right. We're going to have a Russia saying, yeah, absolutely fine. But we're going to have Ukraine saying no. A dialogue will be held between Russia and NATO with the mediation of the USA to resolve all security issues and create conditions for de-escalation to ensure global security and increase opportunities for cooperation and future economic development. That's point 4, Lembit.
Great for Russia, big tick there. NATO have a problem with this one. If they say no, they look like the warmongers they are. They should say yes, but what they'll actually say, what they'll think is, no, we want to carry on hassling Russia.
Yes.
But they'll say, oh, we can't agree to that because Ukraine has to be part of the deal and they don't agree. So they'll force an X for Ukraine on that, I think. Tick X.
Yep, I'm in total agreement with you on that one as well. So far, we're batting 4 out of 4, Lembit. But of course, there's 2 parts of the peace plan that are now correct, that would be agreed on, and 2 parts that we agree that wouldn't be agreed on. So we come to point number 5. Ukraine will receive reliable security guarantees.
Well, what's not to agree with on that? That should be a double yes. Ukraine won't like it. They'll say we don't believe it. But if they say no to that, they'll say, no, we don't want reliable security guarantees. Russia's, of course, going to give that offer. I've seen the other conditions. Based on the other conditions, they'll say yes. So Ukraine should say yes. If they say no on this, that sounds ridiculous because it means, no, we don't want reliable security guarantees. I'd say a double tick.
Okay, I'm going to go the other way. I'm going to say Russia turn around and say no until they hear the fact that no NATO countries or no, shall we say, de facto, shall we say, owned countries by America are going to go into Ukraine. That would be I think the Russians will want to have reliable guarantee. Ukraine can have reliable guarantees, but they will be guaranteed rather by Russia rather than Europe and the US. Where I see a problem here, Lembit, is if the US then give them guarantees that should anything kick off, that America would then intervene. That's where I see a problem.
Say that last part again.
So what I'm looking at here is Ukraine. It all depends for Russia. They have to have more clarity on what these guarantees are.
Yeah. Okay. All right. You make that an X. Well, okay. But why would they? Why would there be a problem? Why would there be a problem of them saying, "Yeah, we'll give Ukraine guarantees. You give us what we want. We'll give you guarantees because we don't need to fight you anymore."
Okay. So Ukraine's guarantee is security guarantee for signing this peace deal is that NATO troops can go into Ukraine and be part of a peacekeeping force.
That's another point, though. That's another point.
But it's something.
On this one, I do disagree with that. I think that Russia have no problem saying, yeah, that's fine, but as long as you fulfill all 28 points here, I mean, I think they're probably like 26 of them anyway. I don't know. We'll see. But as long as the other points are achieved, then we'll go with it. Okay. Well, you think Ukraine would say yes to that? Well, yeah, they have to, don't they?
I think Ukraine want guarantees, possibly from. They will want some sort of guarantee from Europe. I would say that Russia would be happy to have guarantees and even a peacekeeping force that was not an American proxy or a Euro or part of NATO. So on that one, I'd sort of say we're sort of 50-50. Let's get on to the next point then, because this is, shall we say, point number 6. Now, this is where I see a problem massively. The size of the Ukrainian armed forces will be limited to 600,000 people.
I wouldn't have thought either side likes that. Ukraine will definitely say no. I don't care really what they say. They're going to have to take this in the end. We'll talk about that later. They'll say no. Why should we be limited in this way? I think Russia might say no for the opposite reason. They want to demilitarize Ukraine. I'd say a double no.
Yeah, I'm in complete agreement with you. This one, very simply, the size of Ukraine's armed forces at the moment is 600,000. That's all they have left. And very, very simply, if you're going to chop it in from 2002, when there was 2020, sorry, when this first started, they only had 900,000 people. So if you're going to reduce it by half, should be 450,000. Simple as that. They had 1.2 million in reserve, but reserves weren't brought into this or anything. They were just saying the size of the Ukrainian armed forces. So it could even be less than that. Russia might even want 300,000 and maybe only 300,000 in reserve. Point 7, Lembit, Ukraine agrees to enshrine in its constitution that it will not join NATO, and NATO agrees to include in its charters a provision that Ukraine will not be admitted in the future.
It's an obvious yes, no, because you've got those plonkers in NATO who don't care about the promise. So that's yes, no, yeah.
Okay, so that's as I say but that for me would be a no. Ukraine will always turn around and go, we want to decide whether or not. So that's another part of the peace plan that is problematical. Point 8, NATO agrees not to deploy troops in Ukraine.
Russia, yes. Once again, NATO should say yes to that, but they won't. So Zelensky, their little clown puppet, amateur politician, will say no.
Okay. I'm in agreement with you. I think Ukraine will turn around and say no. I think they will turn around and say exactly what they want. That is yet another, shall we say, we've only got 3 out of the 8 points so far that are agreed upon. Number 9, European fighters will be stationed in Poland.
I don't think Russia will care because they're already there, and it's none of Zelensky's business, really. I don't know. Russia might moan about it, but I'd say yes, yes.
Yep, I'm going yes, yes on that one as well. So 4 out of the 8 points.
It's the pressure. It's the pressure, Warren.
4 of the 8 points. We'll get on to the nasty stuff. Number 10. We've got the US guarantee. Now there are different points to this US guarantee. There are 1, 2, 3, 4 points. So let's get into these. If Ukraine invades Russia, it will lose that guarantee. The US will receive compensation for that guarantee. If Russia invades Ukraine, in addition to a decisive coordinated military response, all global sanctions will be restored. Recognition of new territory and all other benefits of this deal will be cancelled. And if Ukraine launches a missile at Moscow or St. Petersburg without reason, the security guarantee will be considered invalid.
Was it the second and the fourth one are a problem? Oh, sorry, that's a security guarantee for Ukraine. Yeah, well, yeah. They should agree with that, but they won't. So they won't agree with this. They won't agree with this, but they should agree that if they're aggressive towards Russia, oh no, we have to defend ourselves and have some vagueness there. The one that I don't understand, I'd say Russia will agree with 3 of those. The one that isn't clear to me, and Ukraine will agree with 3 of those slightly different 3. I don't understand this one about compensation. What's it mean?
Basically, they will pay for Russia will pay for American troops to be there.
Well, they're not going to say that. So you're going to get a double no on the overall point because of the detail.
Yep, I'm absolutely in agreement with you on that point as well. There is now we start to as we start to get into tricky areas now. Ukraine, number 11. Ukraine has the right to EU membership and will receive short-term preferential access to the European market while this issue is being considered.
I think Ukraine will agree. Russia may not care. I don't think it would be. They would abstain really, but they could agree to that. But Europe shouldn't. Why should we want this corrupt bunch of charlatans in the European Union? If I was in the EU, they're absolutely corrupt. So the people who should be saying no to that are their useful idiot friends. But as far as Ukraine's concerned, yeah, gimme. Russia might say, yeah, do what you like.
Yeah, Russia, Robert. I think we're totally in agreement with that, Lembit. I don't think Hungary and many others will be happy about Ukraine coming into the EU. But in terms of Russia and Ukraine agreeing to that, we can see both a tick in those boxes. Number 12. Now, there is 6 points to this, Lembit. A powerful global package of measures for Ukraine's recovery, including but not limited to point A creation of the Ukraine Development Fund to invest in rapidly growing industries, including technology, data centers, and AI. The US will cooperate for Ukraine for joint restoration, development, modernization, and operation of Ukraine's gas infrastructure, including pipelines and storage facilities. C, joint efforts to restore territories affected by the war for recovery. Point D, reconstruction and modernization of cities and residential areas. Point D, infrastructure development. Point E, mining of minerals and natural resources. And point F, the World Bank will develop a special financing package to accelerate these efforts.
Yeah, Russia's fine with that. Doesn't cost them anything. Ukraine will love it because, aside from anything else, it replaces the illegal arms trade with a whole bunch of new ways to extort money. But the world should say no.
Yeah. I'm in agreement with you. Pardon me. I'm in agreement with you. This is basically for BlackRock to get their money back for the money they've invested in the infrastructure. Let's get on to the next point. Russia will be reintegrated into the global economy. Point 13.
Yeah, well, I would say that Ukraine can't. They don't like it. They can't disagree with it. Russia, of course, they're going to agree.
Yeah, I think we're on a double tick there. Point 14. Here we go. Sorry, point 13. Sorry. Sorry, I do apologise. There's a couple here. There's an A, B, and a C. Sanctions removal will be discussed and agreed upon gradually and individually. That's point A. Point B, the US will conclude a long-term economic cooperation agreement aimed at mutual development in the Arctic. And point C, Russia will be invited to return to the G8. I don't think Russia care if they're in the G8, Lembit.
Well, I think that that's all agreeable. Russia might disagree with the rate at which the sanctions are removed. They might moan about that, but I think essentially they'd say yes. Ukraine won't like it, but they'll have to say yes because otherwise they'll look terrible.
Okay.
What do you think?
Point 14. I'm in agreement with you. I'm going a tick as well.
Yeah.
Point 14. Frozen funds will be used as follows. 100 billion of frozen Russian assets will be invested in the US-led efforts to restore and invest in Ukraine. The US
100 billion, not 100,000.
100 billion. Yeah. 100 billion of frozen Russian assets will be invested in US-led efforts to restore and invest in Ukraine. The US will receive 50% of the profits from this enterprise. Europe will add 100 billion to increase the volume of investments available for Ukraine's frozen European funds. Ukraine's recovery. Frozen European funds will be unfrozen. The remaining Russian funds will be invested in a separate US-Russia investment instrument that will implement joint projects in certain areas. This fund will aim to strengthen relations and increase common interests to create a strong motivation not to return to conflict.
Obviously not for Russia. Yes, for Ukraine, they want Russian money.
Yes, I am in total agreement with you on this one. There is no way. This is pikey beyond belief. This is literally saying, we started a war in Ukraine. We'd like most of your frozen assets to basically end the war and stop you from doing such a nasty thing again, such as winning.
Yeah.
I think that's quite staggering. And it's beyond belief. Beyond belief.
Yeah.
Point 15. A joint US-Russian security working group will be created to facilitate and ensure the implementation of all provisions in this agreement. Well, if they didn't agree on point 14, there's no point having point 15. So I will say Russia will say no to that as well.
Well, Russia, yeah, Russia, yes. If somehow they came to an arrangement, Russia would like that, but Ukraine would say no because they want to be on it. The embarrassing bleating today has been breathtaking.
Okay. Point 16. Russia will legally enshrine a policy of non-aggression towards Europe and Ukraine.
I think they probably would agree to that.
Yes. Because at the end of the day, they're not the ones who have been the aggressors.
Yeah, yeah.
So right. I go along with you there. I go for a double tick there. Point 17. The US and Russia will agree to extend the treaties on non-nuclear proliferation and control, including the New START treaty.
They'll say it needs more discussion. Russia, Ukraine again. It's irrelevant what Ukraine says. They'll probably say yes. Doesn't matter. It's really that's a American Russian question, and Russia would maybe say yeah because they'll then just string out the discussions if they don't like them. What do you think?
I've gone with a yes, Lembit. So we've got tick across the board on that one. The next one.
Yeah.
Here you go.
We're not leaving the ticks up long enough. We're not seeing them, by the way.
Sorry, I'll leave them up for a bit longer. Point 18. Ukraine agrees to be a nuclear-free state in accordance with the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty.
Well, Russia say yes. Ukraine has to say yes.
Yep, absolutely. There we go. And I'll leave those ticks up for you. That one sounds absolutely fine. They were nice, easy ones. We're going to come on to some tricky ones. However, Number 19, Lembit, the Zaporozhye nuclear power plant will be operated under the supervision of America and the IAEA, where the electricity produced will be distributed equally between Russia and Ukraine 50-50.
I don't know the internal politics of it. The IAEA, fair enough. I don't think that particular nuclear facility has anything to do with generating weapons-grade equipment, so that's not a matter of concern, really. But I don't know the politics of the 50-50. I don't know what's been happening, so I can't answer that. What do you know?
Okay, so the Zaporozhye nuclear power plant, we have said long ago, there is something underneath the Zaporozhye nuclear power plant, because every time they have tried to get to any peace agreement, it has included the Zaporozhye nuclear power plant going back to Ukraine or going into American hands. They bombed it like crazy. Well, when the IAEA have been there inspecting it, this is something that has not stopped. America have been obsessed with getting their hands on the Zaporozhye nuclear power plant. And I, for one, am turning around and saying the Russians will say no like a shot.
Okay, but they're not really. It's in Russian-controlled areas, so that would remain. IAEA could pop in and visit from time to time. You're saying there's more in it than
the IAEA already go in there, Lembit.
Right. So there's no problem with that, is there? I think the only question is how much power they should be sharing with each side.
They're not going to want to give any of that to Ukraine. In fact, Ukraine have bombed it on quite a few occasions.
Yeah.
So I'm going a no on that one. Absolutely.
Yes to Russia. Well, okay. All right, it's okay. All right. So do you think that Ukraine would say yes?
Oh God, yeah. Ukraine would love
to. Okay.
Yeah. Would absolutely love it. So there we go. There's a blank for Russia for me and a tick for Ukraine there. Ukraine will basically, or the IAEA, would just do whatever America told them. America want to get their hands on that power plant, and they have done ever since the Russians took it over. So for me, it's an absolute no. There is no way that they're going to get their hands on that. Point 20. Both countries will agree to abolish all discriminatory measures and guarantee the rights of Ukraine and Russia and media and Russian media and education.
Well, they have to look like they're saying yes to that. Otherwise, essentially, well, Russia wants that. As Zelensky says no, it proves the Nazification position.
It does.
Yeah, they'll have to say yes.
And I'm going to turn around and say Ukraine will turn around and say no.
Why?
Ukraine do not want the Russian language. They've done their very best to destroy it, and in fact are still beating people up in cafes and restaurants for daring to speak Russian.
Really?
Yeah. So the current regime that is in, shall we say, in there is quite, the current regime that's in Ukraine. Really, I mean, there are people that are reported to the police for daring to speak Russian, which is their native tongue.
That's back to the Nazification issue, or a derivation of it. Yeah. I would have said yes on that, because I don't think it can be seen to be saying that, but that'll be an interesting one. Yes. Okay, I predict he'll say yes.
Okay.
Let's just see. You predict he'll say no.
I'm going for a no. So that one of the few times we disagree here, Lembit. Let's get into this one then, because this is going to be quite interesting. The next point is both countries will agree. All Nazi ideology and activities must be rejected and banned.
Well, how could you disagree with that?
What?
How could you disagree? How could you disagree with that?
Well, 51 countries at the recent vote in the UN disagreed with it.
Okay, what did they say?
So Russia put forward the idea that glorification and the spread of Nazism must be curtailed and must be banned. And they put this forward at a vote of the UN. 114 countries said yes to what Russia proposed, and 51 countries, including almost every European country, including Ukraine and the United States, said no.
Why?
Because neo-Nazis are our friends, Lembit.
I just
They're
can't
fighting
understand
the
that.
Russians.
I'm stunned.
Go check it out. Go check it out. 51 countries voted against the glorification of Nazism. Israel didn't. Israel voted with Russia on that one. They couldn't really do otherwise.
No.
But every single European country, the United Kingdom, the USA, Ukraine, all voted against the motion.
That's stunning.
Isn't it just? You can actually go. We posted the result on the channel a couple of days ago.
That's unbelievable.
There we go.
I'm stunned by that. I'm absolutely stunned. So you're thinking it's a yes, no?
Oh, it's definitely a yes, no. Without
wow, that's dark.
Yeah, it is. And of course, there are many people out there that will turn around and say there is no Nazi problems or whatever. Yeah, there is. Now we come to the sticky one, Lembit. We've got A, B, C, and D on this. Crimea, point number 21. Crimea, Luhansk, and Donetsk will be recognized de facto as Russian, included by the US. B, Kherson and Zaporizhia. So that's the first one. Let's take point A first. Lembit, Crimea, Luhansk, and Donetsk will be recognized de facto as Russian, including by the US.
Say that again.
Okay.
I heard it, but I know this. I had looked through it. I could see this is a huge problem. I already know the answer to this, but let's just go through it exactly, because I think viewers will find this very interesting. Go through that word by word again, because there's something in the middle which is tricky.
Crimea, Luhansk, and Donetsk will be recognized de facto as Russian, including by the US.
That's the thing. The de facto is the problem.
Yes.
What does that mean? Does it mean it's like a demilitarized zone? Is it like there's still a war between North and South Korea? What does de facto mean?
Well, I'm going double no.
I think Russia would disagree with that, and yeah, Ukraine will certainly disagree with that. Yeah,
I'm going double no
on that point. Yeah.
De facto means at the moment it's obviously it stands to reason Russia are occupying it. Therefore, it is then we recognise that Russia are actually there. But de jure means they recognise it legally as part of Russia. Ukraine are not going to do that. Ukraine are absolutely not going to do it de jure, and Russia are going to want it de jure and not de facto.
Yes. Yeah. Totally agree.
Ukraine aren't going to recognise it as either.
Yeah.
So
yeah. So that's that. It's the de facto part, which is the problem.
Yes. Question B, part B of this territories. Kherson and Zaporizhia will be frozen along the line of contact, which will mean de facto recognition along the line of contact.
It's down to what amount of land Russia wants, whether that's a yes, no, because they can fight for it and they can get it. So if I think that from what you've told me before, it's not as much as they want. So they could say no on that. And Ukraine will certainly disagree because they don't want to give up any land.
No, exactly that. Russia are not going to want to give back any land in Zaporizhia, nor are they going to want, because what you've got there is you've got a ceasefire along the border and a frozen conflict. A frozen conflict is a ceasefire in all but name. So Russia are going to turn around and say no. So that's a hard no. And also, Ukraine are not going to recognize it as de facto in Russian control. They're just going to go, no, it's not in Russian control.
Yeah.
So that's a no always round there on point B.
Yeah.
C.
That's a biggie. That's a biggie.
Point
it's the biggest one so far.
Point C. Russia renounces other agreed territories, likely referring to parts of Kharkiv, Sumy, and Dnipropetrovsk regions captured by Russia, which it controls outside of the 5 regions.
Go through that word by word again. I said it would get quite pedantic.
Yeah, not a problem at all. The devil is always in the details.
And these ones, it definitely is. Yeah.
Russia renounces other agreed territories, likely referring to the parts of Kharkiv, Sumy, and Dnipropetrovsk regions captured by Russia, which it controls outside of the 5 regions. Those
No,
5 regions being
it's the word agreed at the beginning. I don't understand. What do they mean by other agreed territories? Other territories as agreed? Is that what they mean?
Yeah, exactly that.
Well, they could say yes to that because the next part's likely, and Russia can say, well, but we don't agree with that. We'll give up the territories we agree with. Ukraine will disagree with that because it's too much. Once again, it implies that they're giving in to the previous point. Ukraine has to say no, and Russia might say yes if they're pedantic. But yeah, well, I mean, that's fair enough. Russia might not take the pedantic position. Ukraine will have to say no. Russia might say, oh, come off it, guys, forget it. Winners write the history.
Yep. Putin has repeated on more than one occasion, what we have won, we hold, and we will not be giving that up. So that point for me is dead in the water.
Yeah.
Ukraine forces will withdraw from the part of Donetsk region they currently control, and this withdrawal zone will be considered a neutral demilitarized buffer zone, internationally recognized as territory belonging to Russia. Russian forces will not enter this demilitarized zone.
Don't know. I don't know if Russia wants to own it. Ukraine will say no, but Russia, you think no? Why?
Absolutely.
Why?
It's a demilitarized zone as far as Russia are concerned. They will not be told where they can and can't go in the areas that they've already conquered. So once again, you have what is effectively, this wording is effectively just a ceasefire on the front line of that area. And of course, that means that nobody can put anything in those areas whatsoever. And of course, it is just a frozen conflict on the front line, which is not, it's a ceasefire in all but name, Lembit.
Well, yeah, it's the same problem you got in Korea. The problem with a DMZ, demilitarized zone, is it just gives no man's land the space to provoke. Yeah. And that my issue is it parks the issue rather than fixing it. And I think that's dangerous. It doesn't feel like Russia would agree with that because it implies, ironically, it implies that there's still a continuing volatility along that line, and Russia doesn't want that. And that slightly contradicts other parts of this slightly Byzantine 28-point plan, which is trying to create stability.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's get into this then now. Number 22, after agreeing on future territorial arrangements, both Russia and Ukraine commit not to change these arrangements by force. Any security guarantees will not apply if this commitment is violated.
Well, on its own, that would be a yes. But because they already won't like what the arrangement is, it's difficult. I would say that Russia would say yes, but Ukraine wouldn't want to. Ukraine's way out of line here anyway. They're so disagreeing with that. I'd say it'd be a yes, no, but they'll probably have to both say yes. Oh, yeah, okay, there we are. Yeah,
I'm absolutely in agreement with you, Len, but every time they've had a ceasefire, the Ukrainian neo-nasties have gone in and attacked the people that actually live in those areas. So I'm in utter agreement with you. There's no, Ukraine will say yes, but they will not under any circumstances follow it through. Point 23. Russia will not obstruct Ukraine's use of the Dnipro River for commercial activities. An agreement will be reached on free transportation of grain through the Black Sea.
I think that wouldn't be a problem if everything else is sorted out. That'd be a yes. But by this point, Ukraine could be so grumpy that they're just voting against everything.
Okay.
I'd say yes. What do you think?
I'm going no Russia, yes to Ukraine. Already we have had grain ships from Ukraine coming from Turkey that have been smuggling weapons in those grain ships. And of course, the Russians have found them in Odessa harbour and blown them up. I don't think the Russians will trust shall we say, the grain ships under any circumstances whatsoever.
Okay. Well, that's an interesting reason.
That's my thoughts on that one. Number 24. This is a humdinger. This has four parts to it, Lembit. A humanitarian committee will be established to resolve outstanding issues. Point A, all remaining prisoners and bodies will be exchanged on an all-for-all basis. Point B, all civilian detainees and hostages will be returned, including children. Point C, a family reunification program will be implemented. Point D, measures will be taken to alleviate the suffering of conflict victims.
The first one, it's just some sort of a bureaucracy. I don't think the other three are a problem. I would say that they'll probably agree. It would just be an act of petulance to disagree. I'd say a double yes.
Yeah, I'd turn around and say yes. I'd turn around and say they will both agree to it. I think the implementation of it is absolutely impossible. There are
probably very hard.
1,000 children that are still in many, many areas of Europe that were evacuated there by Ukraine that the parents are trying desperately to get hold of to come back to Luhansk and Donetsk. And literally there are various governments that are refusing to hand back those children, Lembit.
Well, it's the children which are the issue here. For another time, I was thinking of you when they were talking about children the other day. I don't get who's right about the children here.
Yeah.
I don't understand quite what really happened there.
Yes. Number point 25, Lembit. Ukraine will hold elections within 100 days.
Russia, yes. Ukraine, no way, because Zelensky's toast.
Absolutely. 100% not going to happen. At the moment Zelensky agrees to that, it's over. That's not going to happen. We're in total agreement. Number 26, all parties involved in this conflict will receive full amnesty for actions during the war and agree not to make claims or consider complaints in the future.
Double no, because they're both going to blame the other side for war crimes against humanity, etc.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And of course, they're going to want to arrest those people who have carried out some of the most heinous war crimes you could possibly imagine. Number 27, this agreement will be legally binding. Its implementation will be monitored and guaranteed by the Peace Council, headed by President Trump. Sanctions will be imposed for violations.
I would say Trump would say, sorry, Ukraine would say no because they want to be at the table, even though they are essentially irrelevant. Russia would say no because they have to be there too.
100% agree with you. It is quite staggering that, as far as I'm concerned, that Trump would want to oversee the behaviour of both countries, with America having started the war in the first place. Staggering arrogance of that is quite incredible. And finally, point 28, once all parties agree to this memorandum, this is only a memorandum of intent, a ceasefire will take place immediately after both sides withdraw to agreed points to begin implementing the agreement.
Go through that again. It's one of those pedantic ones again. Go on. Read it again.
Point 28. Once all parties agree to this memorandum, a ceasefire will take effect immediately after both sides withdraw to agreed points to begin implementing the agreement.
Right, you see, this is the pedantic point here is, and it's a small point with big implications. The ceasefire begins once people withdraw, which implies that the fighting can continue until they withdraw. That's messy. Remember that Zelensky can't win here. He can just kill more of his countrymen. Probably not his friends, just people who conscripted and all the other poor people who put into the front line. And Russia could simply say, well, that's handy, but I think they feel uncomfortable for the same reason. I think it sounds right, but I just think that there's wriggle room in there, and the Russians are more likely to agree. No, sorry, let me say that. I said it the wrong way around. The Ukrainians are desperate for a ceasefire, and they're more likely to agree to it because it's got the ceasefire word in it than the Russians. I would say no to the Russians, yes to the Ukrainians.
Absolutely. The Russians have made it perfectly clear there will be no ceasefire until the root causes are dealt with. So they have to deal with the root causes first before there's any ceasefire. So there's the 28-point plan, Lembit, in its full entirety. Only 18 points we can see that one side or the other will disagree with, and there are only 10 points there that both sides would agree with. So there's a lot of work to be done. And let's get into this very simply. Kiev disagrees with several points of Trump's plan already. It has not been presented to the Russians yet. And of course, as I say, the Ukrainians have got this peace plan. Let's have a little listen to what she had to say, Lembit.
Since the beginning of this year, Ukraine has supported President Trump's proposals aimed at ending the war. We are ready as before to work constructively with the American side as well as with our European partners and around the world so that the outcome is peace. Ukraine has officially received from the American side a draft plan. We outlined the fundamental principles that matter to our people. We agree to work on the plan's provisions in a way that would bring about a just end of the war. In this context, allow me to make several critical points. First, while Ukraine stands ready to engage in meaningful negotiations to end this war, including at the leaders' level, our red lines are clear and unwavering. There will never be any recognition, formal or otherwise, of Ukrainian territory temporarily occupied by the Russian Federation as Russian. Our land is not for sale. Ukraine will not accept any limits on its right to self-defense or on the size and capabilities of our armed forces. Nor will we tolerate any infringement on our sovereignty, including our sovereign right to choose the alliances we want to join. Any genuine peace process must respect a fundamental principle: nothing about Ukraine without Ukraine, and nothing about Europe without Europe. And let me be equally clear, we will not reward the genocidal intent that underpins Russian aggression by undermining our identity, including our language. Second, support for Ukraine is indispensable. Peace requires strengthened security and sustained financial assistance to Ukraine. Reinforcing Ukraine's defense capabilities is not an escalation. It is the only path to compelling Russia to engage constructively in international peace efforts. In this regard, we express profound gratitude to all partners and allies. This support is an investment in the rules-based international order and global peace. Third, the Kremlin regime will not stop unless it is stopped through unyielding and concerted pressure. There is only one realistic path to ending this war. Russia must be compelled to retreat, economically, politically, and militarily. If we fail to stop Russia now, its aggression will not end with Ukraine. It will continue to export war, occupation, and repression. It will commit more atrocities, torture, inhuman treatment of civilians and prisoners of war, widespread sexual violence, the abduction of children, the destruction of cultural heritage, and environmental devastation. Europe has lived through this before, and we must not dare forget those lessons.
There we are, Lembit. That doesn't sound very as though she's going to... your thoughts on what you've just heard there?
Utter self-delusional nonsense. The Ukrainian president and his Euro chum seem too inexperienced to grasp the basic fact that they're in no position to dictate peace because they've lost the war. De facto, by every measure, they've lost. And regardless of how and why conflicts start, this isn't a moral issue. Winners write the history and losers are handed the terms of their defeat. So what she's talked about there is like the boxer has been knocked down and the vanquisher is standing over them, and the one on the ground says, I'm going to give you one more chance. I'm going to give you one more chance. And so when I listen to that hubristic rubbish, it tells me why they're in the mess in the first place, because they picked a fight by proxy on behalf of the West. that they couldn't win. And because they got a totally inept president, he's a clown, played the piano with his personal member, they have no chance, had no chance from the beginning of winning this. So when she starts saying, oh, all this bad stuff's going to happen if we don't stop, well, then it will happen. But in reality, I, for one, I'm making a prediction now, it'll be in the archive. I don't think that Russia's planning to invade and conquer France, Germany, Poland, Britain, Denmark, or any of the other European countries. I think it'll claim victory once it's sorted out the Ukraine problem, which has been dragging on for 30 years, 35 years.
I think you're absolutely right. Sean Murphy.
Well, I mean, the list of things that she brought out, the list of crimes that she brought out is actually, I'm not saying Russia is squeaky clean in all of, they probably have committed some crimes, but the list of crimes that she brought out is pretty much all projection. It's everything she mentioned are things that Ukraine have done and are well known for doing, not the Russians.
Yeah, absolutely. Good point. Well made. There is, as we say, lots and lots of stuff to come out from this. Very, very simply, Putin has come out and said, and has come out in the last 24 hours and said that all, literally, the SMO, the aims of the SMO must all be completed. So that doesn't sound like anybody's going to be accepting anything very soon. The US are pushing very hard, pushing Ukraine to sign the peace deal by Thanksgiving or lose support. This is according to the Washington Post. The US is now sending signals that everything could be off the table if they do not sign a proposal quickly, which was drawn up by Special Envoy Witkoff. And of course, as I say, the Americans are trying to push this forward. Sidelined from this, Lembit, of course, is shall we say, Megan Moobs, the daughter of Keith Kellogg, who of course runs her own, shall we say, NGO inside of Ukraine. And Keith Kellogg has been sidelined by this. I have a question for you here, Lembit. And we've got somebody who's popped their hand up and took it down again. Who was that? Lee Williams, very quickly.
I was going to say, so America's nothing to do with Ukraine now. The liar didn't say that he was nothing to do with it no more. That is Trump.
Well,
let's
get into this, because this is a question that I'm going to ask Lembit. Lembit, for me, this is a giant honey trap, nothing more. Very simply, if Ukraine turn around and say no, America have got the perfect excuse to get rid of Zelensky and put somebody in who will do their bidding. But of course, that then needs the Russians to agree to everything that is there. The Russians are not going to agree to it. Therefore, Trump can turn around and say, there we go, we tried to get peace. We didn't get anything at all, no concessions from the Russians. We are fully on Ukraine's side again. Let's bring Kellogg back, get rid of Witkoff like we did last time, bring Kellogg back into the fold once again, as we got rid of him last time. And let's give tomahawks to Ukraine. Now, do you disagree with my position on this, and do you think that Trump is really honestly trying for peace, or do you think this is a giant red herring?
I disagree with it. I disagree with you. And what I think is happening that varies from what you think is happening. I do put the caveat, though, that I've been wrong and you've been right before. But my view is this. I think Trump's really got no respect for Zelensky. He regards the Ukraine problem as an avoidable war evoked by his predecessor. And he respects Putin. I think he'd like to get on with it, with Putin, Modi, Xi Jinping, Modi from India, Xi Jinping from China, and Kim Jong-un from North Korea, and sort out a peace pact of some sort. I think that if Zelensky and his ridiculous Euro chums and the nothings from Britain hold out, he will say, carry on. Vladimir Vladimir, give me a call when you finish your specials, your SMO. And then Putin, although he doesn't want to kill more people and spend more money on it, will carry on in the meat grinder, further destroying hundreds of thousands of Ukrainian lives at some cost to Russia, it has to be said, in lives. And they'll get all this land anyway. And then afterwards they'll say, right, we'll stop now. We've got what we want. And they'll probably take more than they were going to take because, and I've got a piece of evidence for it. The debate in Alaska, in Anchorage, pretty much proved it. But Trump asked Putin, what do you want? Putin said, this is what we want. Zelensky said no. Trump said, carry on.
Yeah, absolutely. As I say, this is a great thing. Is you are allowed to have different viewpoints on this channel. It's amazing. We actually do that, and we still end up being friends and can literally go along. And this is someone who has lost the plot even more. Have a listen to this.
Also, we have to understand that in this war there is one aggressor and one victim, so we haven't heard of any concessions on the Russian side. I mean, if Russia really wanted peace, it could have, agreed to unconditional ceasefire already some time ago, whereas we see again over this night bombings of civilians. 93% of Russian targets have been civilian infrastructure, I mean schools, hospitals, apartment buildings, to really kill a lot of people and cause as much suffering as possible. So this is our standing.
Now 93% have been targeted. Really, honestly, can anybody possibly believe anything this absolute idiot has to say? The fact that she is, how can I put it, as she is, utterly and completely irrelevant. We've lost Lembit Opik for the moment. This is, as far as I'm concerned, this woman has to be removed. She's an out and out liar who just cannot, shall we say, use any common sense whatsoever. Her hatred of Russia is so heavy. She's actually trying to turn around and tell you that 93% of everything that Russia has fired into Ukraine has been targeting civilians. I would just turn around and say this. Have a look what Ukraine looks like after 3 years of Russians attacking the infrastructure and the army, and then have a look at the state of Gaza after 3 months. Lembit.
Well, I'm sorry to say that Kaya Kallas has never been credible. I'm sad to say it. Her father was very competent politician. I know, yeah, I know him. I know him. He was very good. But this woman is completely out of her depth, and the fruit fell far from the tree on this occasion. Okay. And what's so sad about it is what she says is complete poppycock. It's nonsense. I'm amazed by the comparatively low amount of civilian deaths. It's amazing. The overwhelming majority, which must exceed 99% of deaths on the Ukrainian side, are because of the absolutely catastrophic mismanagement of the war by Zelensky.
Yes.
Ever more amateur soldiers fighting a crack military, one of the three mightiest in the world. So it almost doesn't even warrant discussion what Kallas said, but it's back to the amateurishness of Zelensky and his chums. These people aren't fit to be in politics, to be honest with you.
No, I think you're absolutely right. The same with Sanna Marin, and of course she's one of the 5 women, along with Annalena Baerbock, along with Ursula von der Leyen, and of course Kaya Kallas, and of course Sandu, who are all heads. Let's have a listen to what Sanna Marin had to say.
Way out of the conflict.
Way out of the conflict. The way out of the conflict is for Russia to leave Ukraine. Okay. That's the way out of the conflict. Thank you.
That's the best you can do. Oh my goodness. That's so embarrassing, Warren.
I know.
That's so embarrassing. Oh my goodness. And then she storms off. It's just unbelievable. It's just totally disregarding 35 years of history. But these people, they're not real. They're not serious. They're not real politicians. They're not serious politicians. They're just amateurs who play around, stab each other on the back, comfortable middle class, high salary apparatchiks, just bureaucrats, really. And we need people far better than that. Whenever you're coming up against absolute political colossuses like Vladimir Putin. That's one of the reasons it's gone this way, because with the exception of Viktor Orban, there's very little talent in the European continent. And so he just runs rings round. Vladimir Putin runs rings yeah.
Somebody popped their hand up. Lee Williams.
Yes, I was just going to say, I personally wouldn't trust this woman, but I'd trust Macron because he done a signed agreement with Zelensky. He's going to lend him a lot of money from the Russian finances, as a guess.
Since you went there, let's go there. Let's have a visit to what I call the cane train. Here we go. So this is, please do not make any assumptions about the spoon and what looks like a tissue next to the glass. Lembit, these three are not very happy. Of course, they're all saying that, of course, this peace deal is complete nonsense. Starmer, Macron, and Merz. And of course, the other thing that is quite crazy, and I am not very happy about, and I don't know how you feel. Here's the Germans training on the underground because they've heard that the Russians like to go through pipelines. So they're actually training on the undergrounds just in case the Russians sneak down the Jubilee line. Germany should take over NATO, says the US. Could you think of anything more disastrous, Lembit?
Yes, Britain doing it. It'd be as bad, actually. The whole thing is a charade. Every time Keir Starmer speaks, he proves the utter clumsy impotence of his comedy coalition of the willing, which has made zero impact whatever on the peace deal so far, and it won't make a difference. No, they're just jokers. We can dismiss them. One thing that makes the situation simpler is there really only are two parties in these discussions, Washington and Moscow. Luckily, it means you don't have to worry about the others.
Of course, the UK can't help themselves. They're talking about sticking men in once the peace deal is solved. I mean, they released this on the same day as the peace deal. John Healey has come out and said, as the Labour Defence Minister, has come out and said that Britain will be getting stuck into this. I mean, what are we to think about? There's Trump desperately trying to get a peace deal, and of course, we've got this absolute nonsense coming on from Great Britain.
It tells us they're not listening at the back. They don't understand that you don't send NATO troops into the country if one of the conditions of peace is not having NATO troops in the country. It's so basic. But when you watch po-faced Starmer and Healy and all these other Labour ministers, it beggars belief that our political system has descended into such amateurishness that they say these things with a straight face. But then they're backed up by a mainstream media run by children that don't question it. And that's why you get totally lopsided reporting. But it's just plain embarrassing.
It is quite staggering, isn't it? And of course, we're just going to hear more and more along this nonsense. Now, the UK has developed a plan to deploy its troops on the territory of Ukraine in the case of a ceasefire agreement. That is totally against what the Russians have said. More than 100 million has already been allocated for this. We're talking about the deployment of units in the rear areas. Of course, no doubt they will have to consult on this with Keir Starmer. That would be a person who would know a lot about deploying in the rear areas. There is a thing that we have a major problem with here, Lembit, is the Russians have already turned around and said no NATO troops in Ukraine.
Yeah, no, exactly. You don't have to be a genius to do that. You only have to listen, pay attention. they've been completely irrelevant to the deal. It's almost like they're in complete denial. It's lucky, as I say, it just makes it simpler because at least there are two grown-ups in the room, and the rest don't matter.
I'm going to throw a curveball at you here,
Yeah.
Lembit. I'll tell you why I think this peace deal is nonsense. Yeah. Why would you? So America and the EU and everybody else is still going to continue giving Ukraine weapons and intelligence. Now, why would Ukraine need weapons and intelligence if they negotiate? Isn't the whole deal that the US stops providing US tax funds and the Ukrainian army shrinks? So if you don't stop the war, we'll stop sending weapons. But if you stop the war, we'll continue to send you weapons. If they wanted to do this right now, if they wanted peace, they would just do this right now and wait for them to negotiate, wouldn't they?
Well, no, I think that they're twisting Zelensky's tail here, and they're saying the war will carry on, and if you don't cooperate, then I'm going to make it even easier for Vladimir Putin to take more land more quickly. That's what I think he's saying. Remember, Trump doesn't respect Zelensky. The best way of looking at it is this is how a rather strict maths teacher would berate and threaten a 15-year-old schoolboy who's not paying attention in the class. You're going to have to come back and do a lot more, or I'll take your times tables away and you have to do it all in your head. I actually think you need to understand that he pretty much regards. I think he thinks Zelensky's a moron. I don't think he does.
Let's ask you a question then, Lembit. What do we do? Because obviously this is going to make various factions furious. What do we do about the coalition of the butthurt?
Well, you don't have to do anything. All they do is talk. They throw some money at it. Luckily, it doesn't make any real difference. If it did make a difference, it would make the whole thing a lot more difficult. If somehow there was some evidence that Ukraine could fight back effectively, the whole situation would be much harder. Back to the original point. However a war starts, it ends when winners write the history and losers accept the consequences of their defeat. It's as old as battle itself, old as war itself. Old as war, really, not battles you can lose and still win a war. But they don't understand any of it. The coalition of the willing. Look at them. Ursula von der Leyen. Keir Starmer. I mean, come on, Benz. Even down to the fact that if those three wanted to be taken seriously, they'd have dressed for the occasion. They needed to be dressed in suits on that train because they just looked like three idiots abroad. That's what they looked like. They just looked like they were going on some pub quiz. And you never see Putin like that. Putin always thinks about how he looks. You got little action man Zelensky, who never looks really serious. Trump, he always presents himself well. Everything about this coalition of the willing is just ridiculous. It's rubbish, really. And then you got that weird man, Mark Rutte, who said that by increasing lethal force, you make a better peace.
Yes.
I've actually said it better than he did. It's just nonsense. Because the fundamental assumption there is that you can beat Russia. You can't beat Russia, Mark Rutte.
No, exactly that. Let's have a little look because obviously Driscoll, we've got some hands up there. Who put their hand up? Somebody put their hand up very quickly. Eric Jones.
Yeah, I disagree. I think this is a total distraction. I mean, unless you want to concede to the fact that Trump's a complete idiot. I mean, and we all agree that he's not a complete idiot. So there's no way any sane person following this whole thing is going to believe that those 28 points are even going to be accepted remotely by Russia. So, I mean, it's a total distraction. There's no doubt about it.
Okay. Thank you very much. There we go. Let's have a little look at this, Lembit, because this is, you need to talk us through this one. The Zelensky curse has struck again. The Social Democrats in Denmark have suffered sweeping election losses. The PM, Mette Frederiksen, centre-left party, has lost control of Copenhagen for the first time in more than 100 years. I would say they lost control of Copenhagen when they started letting all the illegal immigrants in. But in a voting sense, Lembit, for the first time in 100 years. That's every time somebody comes out and backs Zelensky, they end up getting thumped.
Yeah, I think that it probably is heavily to do with the rage that people in Denmark feel about the migrant crisis, which is comparable to the problems in Britain. Having said that, I can't think of any government, any political party outside Ukraine that's doing well because of it. And in my view, Zelensky's so terrified of the electoral fallout that he won't have elections. So even Zelensky thinks it's a dead dog now in terms of electoral popularity. How are you going to vote for Zelensky if he's killed your son or your daughter, or your dad, or your husband?
That.
You're not going
to. Let's talk about Zelensky then, Lembit, because he says his land is not for sale. Okay. There's a bit of a problem here, though. The total amount of oligarchs and individuals, there's over 9 million hectares, exceeding 28% of Ukraine's arable land. The largest landholders are a mix of Ukrainian oligarchs and foreign interests, mainly European and North American, as well as the sovereign fund of Saudi Arabia. Prominent US pension funds, foundations, BlackRock are in there, by the way. University endowments are invested through the NCH Capital, a US-based private equity fund. And one of those oligarchs we know is Alexander Soros, who'd like to dump toxic waste there. So he's saying Ukraine is not for sale, but 28% of their arable land is already sold, Lembit.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's just more utter rubbish. Now, in this conversation we're having on your show today, we're revealing three things. Number one, the very complicated 28-point plan that had absolutely nothing to do with Starmer or his ludicrous coalition of the willing. Number two, Zelensky isn't even a bit part player really anymore. He's just waiting for his instructions and hoping he's not going to get forcibly removed in the process, which is a possibility. And the third thing we learn is the utter rubbish that these people spout. One example of it you've just said there. It's just the whole thing is a coalition of the witless, waiting for the two adults, Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump, to do the deal.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Let's
have
a little look at this, because this is Driscoll and Zelensky meeting.
Nice to see you. You're very welcome. We are thankful to President Trump. Best regards to him and the Vice President, of course, Vance.
President Trump and our Vice President pass along their.
Now, Driscoll was carrying the package or the peace deal to Zelensky. Let's have a little look at this. This is Caroline Levitt.
And I'll also add, I know Secretary Driscoll did meet with President Zelensky today. We spoke with him. He was very optimistic following that meeting. And so, again, we are having good conversations with both sides with respect to ending this war.
Now, there's an out-and-out lie told by Caroline Levitt there, because we have somebody who's very close to Peskov, and no contact with any Russian sources since Alaska, apart from Rubio and Lavrov having that conversation where Rubio cancelled the meeting. So there's been no discussion with the Russians whatsoever by America, and the Russians are still waiting to hear back about Alaska. And of course, there's been no movement on that whatsoever. Is this smoke and mirrors here, Lembit? This is just trying to force Zelensky to have a deal, isn't it?
I don't know. I think there's been some backdoor chat. Russia is entitled to say we haven't seen it because it gives them plausible deniability. I think they're seeing how the land lies. Then they'll go in and pick and choose. There is quite a lot in that peace agreement that they agree with, even if it's not all the points. And they're not in a hurry, back to this point, because the longer this goes on, the more they get that land anyway, at human cost, has to be said. If you're right, 18-1. So every 18,000 Ukrainians that die, 1,000 Russians die, 1,000 bereaved families. That's serious.
Absolutely.
But I still think that there is backdoor chat going on here. It's to some extent what we used to call megaphone diplomacy. People can see this in the public domain. And that makes them feel awkward. A little bit, I think. I just think it's a little bit. It makes them feel awkward because there's a peace plan on the map on the table. And if it's ignored, people get angry. They say, well, why are we still killing each other all the time?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll just add my own little aside to that I think if there is backdoor action going on, it's no wonder Starmer's upset at being left out of it. Mark Onza.
You just can't let it go. They don't like it up him.
Yeah, Warren, I think we're using wrong terminology with peace deal. In eyes of Western media, it's a peace deal, America and everybody else, but really it's terms of surrender. Well, Russia didn't start this war, but they'll certainly finish it. And for them, it's not peace, it's denazification.
Yes.
And it should be words surrender that way, using a surrender deal.
I think you're absolutely right. I think you're absolutely right on that point. There are some videos now that we have to show you. And of course, we cannot be putting those on the internet. So we will be back in 1 minute.